Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see you again, and welcome back to Path to Abundant Living. I'm Ryan Ruff, your moderator, and as always, I'll be joined by my right-hand guys, and that's Mr. Matt Nordman and Scott Morrison of Morrison Nordman Wealth Management. And we're excited to dive into another great conversation, bringing you a fantastic guest expert today in Miss Charis Santille. She is of Charis Your Life. Now, we're super excited to be welcoming Charis on. She is the founder of the organization Charis for Life, but also she really serves as a fulfillment and life transition coach. And we're going to talk about what that really means on a granular level today and how it pertains to a lot of the conversations and work that Scott and Matt are having with their clients at Morrison Nordman Wealth Management. But before we introduce you all to Charis, let's go ahead and say hi to the guys. Matt, Scott, good to see you guys today. How are we doing?
Ryan, great to see you. Scott, Professor, how are you today?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Doing well. Doing
Good.
well.
Yeah, doing well,
Hello.
fellas. Look, so we got a great guest joining us here on the podcast today in Charis Santille, and we've been bringing the audience some really interesting folks on the show of late. Why don't you frame it up to us before we bring Charis out here? Why Charis? Why how come we wanted to bring her on and have a conversation with her today?
That's a great question, Ryan. So I have a friend, Neil Albritton. Shout out to Neil. He has his own financial advising firm in St. Louis, Missouri, and talked to Neil regularly, and he had introduced me to Charis. We all go through different transitions in life, and whether it's retirement and business owners selling the business, or just we all go through these different transitions. He said, you need to talk to Charis because she has helped so many people go through these transitions, because not only is it the physical transition of, oh, I'm going to stop doing this to this, there's a huge emotional component from changing from one thing to the next, that next chapter of the transition, whatever phrase that people like to use. And so we thought, with the people that we work with and anyone else, it's like, what should you be thinking about, talking to someone to help you with that transition? Because we've all seen someone who maybe doesn't know how to do it. They can see people making that transition into something else, but they don't know how to do that. And we thought, what better person than Charis?
No, I love it, guys. And we've had conversations on this show about a really big life transition from some of your clients. And that's that idea of I sold my business. Now what? You've got this massive change in your life, and it can be difficult navigating these. So really excited to welcome Charis Santille. Charis, thanks so much for carving some time out of your busy schedule and jumping aboard with us on Path to Abundant Living today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, everybody.
Great
Charis,
to see you,
Charis,
Charis.
I was gonna mention Charis. I had you on for far more selfish reasons, because Matt's 10 years younger than myself, and he is my succession plan. So yeah, I'm very interested in the topic matter today.
Wonderful. Yeah, wonderful. Happy to chat. And I'm especially intrigued. Matt shared with me a little bit about your background. So I think this is going to be a very interesting conversation between the four of us.
Okay.
So, Charis, which we're going to link to the show about your story about bracing for impact. Can you share kind of your story?
Yes, absolutely. So, what brought me into coaching really goes back to childhood, and the key details to note is that I've grew up in an entrepreneurial household. I literally got to watch my parents pursue and achieve the American dream. They built a business from scratch that started in a kitchen and grew that up. And that was my like junior high to high school years. So I followed suit, and, they were modeling for me what hard work ethic and being an entrepreneur looked like, and all of these things. So I went after all the accolades I could at my age, in school, and conquered a lot of achievements. And then I went off to college, and I came back to celebrate my dad's 50th birthday, and we went for a hot air balloon ride. And that was the summer, to give you a gauge. This was 1994. I was turning 19. My dad was turning 50. And we had this beautiful hot air balloon ride. And there was something that went terribly wrong, though. We had a crash landing, and it was a super hot day, and we had trouble coming down. Anybody who's ever been on one or really seen how they work, it's not like you can steer these things. So the air currents, we had some challenges. We hit the ground. We ended up having to do a couple tries. And during that attempted, second try, my dad ended up falling out of the basket. And he ended up with a broken neck and was paralyzed. And we, obviously our lives completely flipped upside down. This had a huge impact on everything. And immediately that night, it impacted me in that I saw, looking back, I can see how my coping mechanism, once the initial shock was through and the initial terrifying emotions ran through me, and then I was just kind of numb and looking around the hospital trying to figure out what to do next, I found that keeping myself busy was really safe and felt really well. It gave me the illusion of control. So then I think I really started patterning that being busy, getting down to check things off a list. Literally, I started making phone calls to family and friends and all my parents' staff. That was really safe. And so then I ended up doing a couple decades of being a workaholic because that was my my new pattern and way of being. My brain wired that in as, yep, this is gonna help. My mom turned to alcohol to numb her pain. She did that for a few decades until it finally caught up with her liver, and she passed away about 10 years ago. And then my dad, physically paralyzed. My dad's still with us. This coming summer will be the 30th anniversary of the hot air balloon accident. He's still with us, and his sharp as ever, and his attitude is quite phenomenal. It always has been that way. So fortunately, that was my childhood modeling of this really optimistic, very much. He was a Dale Carnegie guy. He was, into all of the personal development things before there was really a thing called personal development, right? It was kind of the beginning time of that. So there's the short, key points of what led me to at least the challenges. Coming out of that, about 11 years ago, I met a life coach, and I'd been doing therapy for a number of years, but coaching was a whole different ball game, and accessed a different part of me that needed some healing and needed some addressing. And so that introduction then led me to become a life coach myself eventually. And so here I am.
That is an unbelievable story. I cannot even imagine what it would be like to go through that and see that, and then to transition literally. So you found yourself in your story doing what you had said, and I'm quote unquote the safe thing. Do you see that a lot with people who go through things like this? The people that you work with?
Absolutely. It's and you mentioned bracing for impact. I have a 5-minute video where I share more about the details, and it's literally about what happened, the actual accident, the bits and pieces. But the bracing for impact, we literally were told to brace for impact. And I think in that moment too, and then looking at the aftermath, we all have ways that we brace for impact in our lives. It's like psychological impact, sometimes physical impact, or they're connected. In my case, there was a connection in one day. It was a life-threatening situation, literally thought we were all going to die, to then, oh my gosh, my dad almost died. Does he have brain damage? Like, all these things we didn't know right away. And then to then coping and then just dealing with feelings I didn't want to feel, super uncomfortable. So I think that we all have ways that we become. What I look back on is that my dad was physically paralyzed. My mom and I became emotionally paralyzed. And I think a lot of people going through different types of transitions have some period of time where they are. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're completely emotionally paralyzed in every aspect of their life, but typically in certain aspects and certain ways, there are feelings that they are refusing to feel, shoving aside, dismissing, avoiding all sorts of things, whether it be through alcohol or work or other vices or anything else you can imagine. There's ways that we cope. And so I think that absolutely everybody has some level of that they do. And even without a big trauma like we went through, basic life trauma.
Okay, real quick, Scott, can you share kind of your experience when you were working at Star? Because it sounds like I've heard you tell stories about some of the at-risk youth that you worked with that sound, the coping mechanisms that Charis was just talking about.
Right. Well, I worked at a child residential care facility with at-risk kids and families. Most of the kids came to our facility. It was a residential setting, away from their families, court adjudicated youth, came with a lot of issues. Oftentimes, definitely abuse in the family, which then was facilitated through their own behavior in a variety of ways, whether it was just not adjusting to school or being a problem in the neighborhood, that kind of thing. So, my background was first, before I got in the financial services industry, was actually in family therapy. So, the thing that strikes me about your story is that what I find in people who've been through things like that is that they develop, when they come out the other end in the right way, they come out with a real passion that many people would love to have as a part of their motivation to start a business. And it just makes me think of some of the success stories we had with kids and families. It makes me think of who never made the leap, who never made the adjustment, and some of the key elements that led to either the failure or the successes. And so, I commend you for being able to take such a tragedy and be able to build a successful business on it. It kind of leads me to my next question of it. Why did you begin this work? You've obviously shared with us what happened with you, but how did you get to the point where you wanted to then transition to helping others?
So there was a key moment, a turning point for me. First of all, that I think is kind of a pivotal thing to share. It was about 11 years ago. I was at a business event. I had just launched a successful software product, and it was for marketing purposes in a niche industry. And I felt like I should have been on cloud 9, but I wasn't. So what ended up happening was I was just chatting with people that, the day before were strangers, and then you start getting to know everyone. Out on the foyer, I ended up telling someone our family story, and I'd done that before. It's not like, and I was able to talk it through and not have a charge with it. And yet there was something different about this moment. And he picked up on that. And he said to me, Charis, I get that you're, dad's been paralyzed for nearly 20 years, but why are you paralyzed? And that was the first time I ever had that connection with what I shared earlier about being emotionally paralyzed. That was the moment that really cut to me. And the next day is when I happened to meet a life coach. So it was like this perfect serendipitous combo of events that then showed me, okay, this is something that can help you. So that was my introduction. It was a very raw time for me, extremely vulnerable. I literally felt like something had cracked me open. I felt very raw and very holy crap, what is going on with me? Something is up. So that began my journey, and I saw the power of coaching and how it complemented the therapy that I was doing. And then I think initially I was looking to it almost like another thing to check off the list, though, a being busy type of thing, and a work thing, and this'll help me, this'll fix it. So my intention was probably a little bit driven by that, but there was something else deeper driving it, thankfully. So I went all in with private coaching, group coaching, different programs she did in person, over calls, all kinds of stuff. And I ended up doing a lot of the prerequisites for her coaching certification program. So over time, then I realized that I'd already had some things under my belt. I was using these communication skills I was learning, coaching skills, which really are at the core communication skills, in my business and my husband's business with how I communicated with employees, I was realizing that I had better relationship with my husband and my family with how I was communicating with them because I was carrying them over too. I saw the value of it. And then I couldn't be honest with myself at first that I actually wanted to become a coach. So I had to use the excuse internally, this was for myself, really, of, well, if I do the whole certification, this will just make me a better business owner. And, Rhonda says there's many people who join who don't actually become coaches and do that full time. There's business owners, there's nurses, there's judges, there's this, that. So that was my justification for being able to go all in to get certified. I'm a certified fearless living coach and a certified fearless living trainer. And then not long after I dove into that, I realized this lights me up. And so one thing led to another. I found a way to exit my current business at the time because I needed to pursue this. And that actually was the beginning step of an intro into an intro into an intro, and it's all compounded that led me here to talk with you today in the financial services world. So, so that's a little bit more about how I actually became a coach.
And yeah, Charis, I was just going to say, it's really interesting to hear the transition for yourself and getting to that kind of aha moment of finding what lights you up. But then from there, would you care to talk a little bit about, since finding that aha moment, where some of the big impacts that you've made on others and where you've felt that moment kind of continually pop up as you've been helping others? What are some of these big impacts that you've had on people as you work through Charis Your Life?
Yeah. So, fun question. Gets me excited thinking about it. So I can think of one gentleman, who's still a client. After the first session with him, my first session with him, actually just a couple sentences in, and this is someone who's very well spoken. He's done a lot of coaching, as a client. He's even, he's written a book. He's done a lot of personal development. He's done therapy. He's done all kinds of things. But something compelled him to work with me, kind of been in a transition for a couple years, no longer really operating a business, really enjoying a lot of things in life. But feeling a little funky through this zone. So a couple sentences in, he made this comment, and I grabbed it because one of the things I really pay a lot of attention to and call people out on is their language. Because it's really interesting, the language we use, and we don't even notice it sometimes ourselves. Most of the time, we often don't notice some of the words we say, or definitely not what we think, and oftentimes not what we say. So he'd said something that sparked me to ask a question really fast, and then led to another question. Well, basically, what he realized is that he never thought about it. He liked to play the humility card when he gets compliments, but he actually dismisses compliments. And then I shined a light on what that actually meant for him and what that meant for the person who essentially is giving the gift of the compliment, and related to almost like if somebody gave you a gift and you just kind of were like, oh, that's nice, and then like set it down, it doesn't feel very good on any side of that. And it was really an interesting aha moment, so much so that he ended up sharing it on a podcast he does. And it was fun to see. It was fun to see him share that so quickly and pay that forward, because it really lit him up. And this is somebody who's done a lot of work on himself, but he realized he was dismissing these compliments and not in full receipt of them, and what's really going on underneath the surface. So that was a fun moment to then see him pay it forward so quickly and share it with his network. And something that's seemingly so simple, but it was so impactful for him. It made it really had a trickle effect. So that's one example. Recently, just in this last few weeks, there's been multiple clients. I've helped them with their relationships with their spouses in being able to speak up for their needs and make requests in such a way that it doesn't get people on the defensive. And they've just yesterday, I had someone join me and I said, so I asked him about a risk he took in this last week. And he says, well, I talked to my wife, like what we talked about. And he said, it was awesome. He said, it worked so well. And he kind of was laughing. He's shaking his head. And I was like, tell me more. It was so fun to hear. And there's been multiple of those lately too. And it's so exciting to think that I'm helping these people in one of their most important relationships in their lives. And how exciting that is to think that they're having better communication. I mean, their whole worlds are changing because of that. It's pretty remarkable.
That is remarkable. So what if, so the first example you gave is someone who, I'll use the word, struggles to accept compliments. So how do you, and I may be really close to someone, i.e. I might be that person who struggles with that. So, you kind of defer. How do you help people accept those? And as you said, it's a gift that someone has given you.
Well, that reframe was enough for him to start shifting, and whether or not that's enough for you, but we can see, but the basic premise is, can you practice saying just saying thank you? And like, at first it may feel uncomfortable to not go on with whatever you would normally say. Thank you, but it's no big deal. Thank you, but really I have this amazing team. Thank you, whatever the thing is that or the thank you. And I need to tell you, and then you've, compliment them back. Because so all of these are common things that a lot of people do. And I used to do a lot myself too. So what I would invite you to do is to practice saying thank you, just the 2 words, if you can, and just bite your
And shut
tongue,
up.
like literally
Shut
just,
up.
yes, literally just think to yourself, it's a gift, just picture a gift. They just given you a gift. Can you just, it's going to be really uncomfortable. It could be really uncomfortable at first, but the more you practice, we talk a lot about frequency, length, and intensity lessening over time with these things. Like the more you practice anything and put your attention on it, the less it's going to happen. Like the shorter the period, like you might catch yourself as you start saying thank you, and you might like literally just like cut yourself off mid-sentence the first time. Another time you might catch it right after you say thank you. The next time you might even think of it before the words come out of your mouth, so that it's going to happen less. And the intensity of how you feel and how uncomfortable you feel, that will lessen over time too, if your practice. And the key to practice is, first of all, though, are you willing? Awareness is number 1, and then willingness is number 2.
All right.
Charis, one of the things that that obviously is real close to myself is the idea of transitioning from one part of my life to the next in terms of a retirement or a transition from selling a business, that liquidity event that I wonder, what am I going to be doing? I've wrapped up so much of my identity in the business that I've built or in the person who I am. And now I'm going to go through this. So what can you tell us what kind of experiences have you had in helping to break through some of those resistances with people who are making those kind of transitions in life?
I have somebody I spoke with yesterday is right there, literally months away. He's been scaling back over time, and I think that is an ideal scenario. So,
you hear that, Matt? You're scaling back part?
You're scaling back? Is that what you're telling me? You're releasing, you're announcing to the world that you're scaling back.
No.
So if you can give it, let me put it this way, the more time you can give it, first of all, the better to ease into it. Because if you it's kind of like, so you don't have that feeling inside of you emotionally, as if you just dropped off a cliff, like just that big change of life was this way and now life is this way, because that can be very jarring to your entire nervous system. And so the more time you can give it, the better. The more gradual you can have that transition be, the better for, again, for your nervous system, for your whole psyche to like be getting into a new groove, and for you to also find replacements that, like, if you're really driven and lit up by your work, but you, for some, decided it is time to lessen the hours and or literally move to ending that chapter, there needs to be something else that's going to light you up. And also, if you've really connected your identity with your business, so much so that your purpose is connected with it and so much is way connected with it, then you're going to hit some definite walls of fear when you try to change your life. And because you're going to be coming up against expanding outside your comfort zone, and your comfort zone is not necessarily everything that's comfortable, but it's just everything that the way your life is right now, which includes a whole part of your brain that is literally trying to keep you safe. And I have a feeling, given your background, you already know a lot of these details, but for our audience who may not know some of this, it's just whatever we're doing right now that's pattern behavior. If you even try to, like, I'm holding up my water right now, if I just say, well, I want to drink more water, and if I'm struggling with that, or somebody out there is struggling with that, and you're like, well, God, that's a simple thing to do, why can't I just do more? Like, why can't I just do it? Because it's simple. I'm literally capable of it. I can pick it up. I can get it. I have access to it. But if I'm not doing it enough, it can be an easy way to beat myself up. Well, these are like these little stretches, a little bit outside of our comfort zone and outside of our habits, where we can hit little walls of resistance. And technically, there's fear driving us underneath all of that, believe it or not. It may sound dramatic, but it's true. And if we're struggling to do like one, I'm sure everybody can think of like something seemingly simple that you want to be doing in your life or not doing that you're struggling with. And then imagine a bigger thing like this career change or ending, or however you want that to look. It can be a big deal. It could almost feel to your system as if you're going to die. When you think about some of that, it just depends. Everybody's comfort level with all of this stuff and the fears they have beneath everything can really affect them. So there's a lot for rewiring and having it be a gradual, because there's definitely, what I've seen so far out in the world is that the typical exit plan is missing the emotional plan. It's really doesn't typically cater to the emotional aspects of these significant life changes, especially when someone has built a business or gotten so attached to it. It's almost like for my mom, when they lost I don't know if I told all the details, but like they lost the business, they lost everything, they went bankrupt. For her, losing the business was like having a child ripped from her. I mean, it was devastating. And I see and hear about that too from, out in this world, your world. It's really, it's so sad to hear when people are even making a conscious decision to leave their business, and then they've got time and money, like let's say the best scenario, and yet then they feel completely just miserable. And they're not they don't feel worthy to enjoy their life because they've associated so much with their business. That's the case with some people.
So maybe as you approach retirement, as opposed to waiting until your retirement, start looking for those transition points, looking for those things that you can start to incorporate into your life, as part of the transition to retirement. Absolutely.
And if you're willing to do the emotional work, whether it's someone like me and or therapy and or something, some group, some people have church groups, there's all kinds of ways you can get support. I have seen, and I firmly believe that emotional work is absolutely I don't want to say necessary, because for some people, maybe it just depends on what kind of life you want to have. But if you really, really, really want to grow and evolve yourself through this and have this amazing next chapter that is everything you dreamt it would be, or actually better in a sense, then I highly recommend doing some emotional work.
So Charis, when someone's thinking about this, right? When they're thinking about that transition of selling their business or moving on from the thing that they're doing, right? Especially with the example of selling your business, the business valuation, that's a numbers game, and you can figure out, oh, this is what it's worth, pay out lump sum, pay out over 5, 7, 8 years, whatever that looks like. They can figure that out. But what should they be thinking about in addition to, you touched on that emotional side of it. What should they be thinking about and or doing to prepare and or transition?
The words slow down are coming to mind right now. I think that uh, slowing down to really evaluate, it's almost like their inner portfolio. Because if they're waking up, I know some people that are still, they're looking to retire, and yet they're still working on vacation, you know. And it's like, okay, you're going to have a big leap. You're going to feel completely disconnected from yourself and your whole experience if you don't make some other transitions here. But slowing down to do an internal inventory of how attached you are to work, how attached you are to your business, literally where are you spending your time, what else do you enjoy. Like some people say, well, I'll just, yeah, I'm looking forward to being able to golfing more and traveling more and da 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 da, da, or I want to so let's think of the idea of golfing more, for example. Well, has that person ever, golfed multiple times in one week? Do they enjoy that? Is that fun for them? Maybe they should try that. Doing it once every whatever might be normal for them, but what do they anticipate they'd be doing in retirement? You want to try that out for a short term? What else is it that you envision that you think you would be doing so much? You could experiment and try some of these things out and see, like, does it feel boring after a few weeks? Or are you really enjoying that? Is that going to fulfill you? There's some practical things like that can be done as well. But all of that is going to reveal where there may be some emotional issues and gaps in connection with all of this too. And if they're uncomfortable not being able to be doing work, what does that mean for them?
Have you ever incorporated other family members or business associates or whatever that case might be as part of that transition in terms of helping the business owner, so to speak?
I've had a spouse on an initial call with me because the person, the client wanted her to meet me and just get her, kind of opinion. He'd already watched a lot of things I'd done and had come to me from a referral and stuff, felt pretty confident, but he wanted that. She's not been on the calls. Typically, I would say it's ideal scenario to have, it's a very personal experience, and you want to be able to face stuff and in a safe space, and having that person there is usually not, I would not do that anytime in the like early days for sure. If that was a request of a client, it would come much later, much, much, much later. But I think the most impactful I can have, or the most impact I can have with someone is by helping them in like their communication with their spouse. Like I gave the example earlier, that is super powerful, and that builds their confidence to be able to do it again and again. And that literally happened after just a couple sessions with one of these people recently. So pretty exciting, the impact it can have in their personal life, which then expands to everything. So I think that while it can be done, I am not a big advocate of that. I think that the greatest power comes in working with an individual and guiding them on how to improve their relationship so that they build that muscle and they have the power themselves and can see the little wins. And then you build up, it's like a file box of evidence that I'm always working on with people and like in their brains. We've got this file box and we want to keep packing it with evidence that it's safe to ask for getting, our needs met and make requests, and we can do it in a certain way. And look, that phrasing works, and it's safe to slow down. It's safe to do these fun things that I want to do. It's safe to not be super productive all the time. Whatever that is we're working on, we can build this evidence, and then that muscle gets stronger over time. So that's the key thing that I work on with people.
Which sounds fantastic. So someone's listening and they're like, well, when should I begin this process? I'm X age and I love what I do. Or is it when they start to feel the tug of, oh, maybe it's time? Or like, when should someone even begin this process of whether it's talking with someone like you, which we would highly recommend, or someone else to say, yeah, I need to be involved with someone to help me with this transition?
I say the earlier the better. I have grown so much in a decade of this kind of work myself, like literally myself doing this kind of work to improve myself and my communication and my clarifying my own purpose and disconnecting that from any business I've ever had, and really feeling true value and trust in myself no matter what. I mean, I am such a different person because I've spent so much time working on myself, and it's fantastic. So I want that for other people. So I say, do it before you need it. Like, if you have anything that inspires you, is like, yeah, I want to get a head start on this, then go for it. First of all, your relationships, your whole life will just change. I mean, this led to me designing a life that I love. Not that I ever hated my day-to-day life in my prior businesses and things, but oh my gosh, I'm so lit up now. It's so much fun. So that's what I would say first of all. But most of my clients, for example, tend to be in their late 40s to late 50s, some in their early 60s. But the people, sometimes they're getting a head start or they're going through a transition of like, well, I'm selling one business, or a doctor who's wanting to move on and do something different, or is just feeling a little something to shift in their life. They're not into the retirement zone, but they want to do something different, and they want to maintain a certain life balance that they finally accomplished. Because most of my clients have in common with me that at some point they were workaholics too. So we tend to have that in common, but they've found a sense of balance for the most part at this stage is what tends to be the case. And then there's the people too that are looking at, hey, I'm looking to retire a handful of months or a few years down the road, or I'm in this zone. So it's all over the map. I think the biggest thing is to trust your own gut. And if you feel a whisper, that's not the voices that come up and try to tell you should or shouldn't do stuff, but the little whisper that's like, yeah, why don't you go check into this? Then do that.
So we come across a lot of people that we work with, and then people that are introduced to us. You can lead the horse to water. Are there things that we should be looking for, others should be looking for, of, oh, this is someone that would really benefit from talking with Charis? You talked about they want to grow. Is that, or they, self-improvement, is that something someone should be looking for to say, oh, you should talk to Charis? Or is it, we know that you're going to be selling your business, or you have this big transition coming up?
Well, so definitely an obvious transition or somebody. So a lot of people, most of my clients come to me by referrals, either from current clients or from people like yourselves. And they tend to have in common, they are about to do a transition, or they are in the middle of one, or they're just kind of been in one for a couple years and feeling a little funky. So that has been in common. There's also been the commonality of I have people fill out a coaching application before they work with me, and we determine if we're a match for each other. And so that's the first way I get to know someone. And then we get on the phone too. And I would say that a word that is almost on almost every of these one of these that in some answer shows up is the word purpose. So anybody ever mentions the word purpose, one person mentioned it as a purpose crisis, or I want to figure out what my purpose is in retirement or my purpose in my next chapter. So that's a common phrase, word that's popping up. And so purpose, transition, definitely if they're about to exit something, especially if they built it themselves, and but I those are the key things coming to mind right now.
Okay. Appreciate it. Well, I don't know if Scott, if you have any more questions, but we have taken way too much of your time. So we really appreciate this. I know a lot of people are going to benefit from hearing this. If someone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So my website is charisyourlife.com. I'm at Charis Your Life on all the socials. And I have a podcast too called Charis Your Life. And my name is tricky. You guys have all said it perfectly. It's spelled and pronounced like the city Paris to help everyone understand, but with a Charis. So you can find me everywhere at Charis Your Life.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I know I'll speak for anybody that's listening. I know they're going to find a lot of value in this, and we appreciate your insight and expertise and your time.
Absolutely. It was been a pleasure.
Fantastic. Well, Charis Santille joining us from Charis Your Life. Really appreciate her and her time today, diving into this idea of fulfillment and the life transition work that she does with clients. Guys, man, Charis unloaded a lot. I mean, her story obviously emotional, impactful, led her down this journey to then helping others. What was some of the big takeaways for you, Matt? I'll tee it up for you first, and I'd love to hear from Scott as well.
Ryan, there was so much to unpack and so much information. When we talk with people, we talk about, that transition a lot of times about how scary it can be. And so having someone like Charis help you unpack all that to get to that next step instead of viewing it as this, I got to climb a 10 or 15 or a 20-foot wall to get to that next chapter, the next stage, whatever term you like to use, instead of just being it's just one more step, because you've been purposeful and intentional in saying, okay, how do I make that transition that much easier? And then obviously just say thank you. Someone gives you a gift of a compliment. Thank you. And literally just this past weekend, my wife and I were talking about that exact same thing. So yeah, those were two big things for me.
Yeah, really interesting. Really, I took that was a very, very interesting note. I also fall into that bucket of trying to, I accepting the compliment, but also just trying to move past it because for whatever reason it would make me uncomfortable. I totally get why and how so many people tend
Oh,
to lean
it's
on that.
right. It's so easy to do because you really are, you are appreciative of it, but you're
Sure.
also like, well, it clearly, like
Yeah.
she said, well, it's my team. It's like, I look at the team who has helped me, make someone else's life easier and put the plan together and implement the plan. And it's not, it's not just me
Yeah. Yeah.
in
Well,
so many instances. So yeah, I totally get it.
yeah. Well, Scott, what were some of your big takeaways from our conversation with Charis?
Well, I think, Matt and I talk so much about, what really defines us as financial advisors or wealth managers. And, if somebody asks us the question, what do you do? I mean, the easy knee-jerk reaction is, well, we're financial advisors or we're wealth managers. But what we really do best. I mean, what we feel like we do best is we connect with people about what's most important and finding that purpose, so that the wealth and the purpose, or the transition of the business and the next purpose, becomes a real living thing, and something to plan for. And so you're going to find yourself, I think, if you're a good financial advisor, talking a lot more about people's lives than just, what the valuation of their business is, or how much life insurance they have for the next generation. I think it's, when we talk about things like transitions in life, whether it be from a tragedy or just, somebody who's going to go into retirement, they're not used to being retired. They're used to working. And so, spending some time, when I think about our discovery process again, and our wealth management process, I think about, okay, redirecting clients back into discussions about, what's the real purpose here of your life, and what are we going to do to build a wealth plan around that purpose. And I think that's, if we're having those kind of discussions all the time, then we're not going to save it for the very end. We're going to make it just part of the everyday, just the progress of working with people and their finances.
That's like,
yeah, I love that.
Which I want to ask you, Ryan, but like, just to expound on what Scott's saying, it's like just helping, what we're known for is helping people get purposeful and intentional. And then we're committed to helping them, with that wealth to actually, take care of their family and achieve all those things, like Scott was saying, that are most important to them, right? Because it is all about them. It's all about you and what it is that you want to achieve.
Sure.
What'd you take away, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, that idea of being purposeful, intentional, you can't get that life of fulfillment that Charis helps people work through without being purposeful, without being intentional, because otherwise you're always going to lean on your knee-jerk reaction, which it might be burying yourself in work. It could be burying yourself in other things that are, worse for your health. There's our knee-jerk reactions not always are going to be the best for us when it comes to these big transitions in our lives. We try to, I think most of us out there tend to want to lean towards the path of least resistance, but the thing that really stuck out for me, really interesting for me was this idea of, you have this vision for what the back end of the transition may look like. Matt, you framed it up, it's this big wall in front of you, but that vision of what is behind the wall and what is reality once you arrive behind the wall is usually a little different. And it's probably important that you should test the waters a little bit. So the idea that Charis provided with us of for somebody who has this envisionment of retirement and golfing and traveling, well, how often do you golf now? Is this something really that you're going to want to be doing the majority of your time? Let's say as much time as you just spent 50 hours maybe a week on managing and running your business. I mean, testing the waters was like a big theme that I think I took away from that, and being real with yourself and having a purposeful and intentional idea of what lives on the other side of that wall, what lives on the other side of the transition that you're hoping to eventually achieve. So really interesting stuff. I mean, it makes you look inward, and no wonder why Charis has had success having these types of conversations with folks, because it's tough to have this conversation yourself with just yourself, to have somebody like Charis to bounce these ideas off of and work through some different barriers in your life. It's super important.
Extremely important. And what I heard Scott say is, well, he's not ready to go, but he might start testing the waters and taking a little more time. And so along those lines,
Glad you're paying attention.
I feel that, again, we're both called to do this, and I have, Lord willing and the creek don't rise, have no plans to stop doing this, but maybe I do need to play golf because I do enjoy golf. So maybe I should try to play a little more golf just to
You're not going to have time to do that if I'm doing what I'm doing.
Just to try to see what it's like.
I'm seeing I'm seeing some more tee times in Matt's future, Scott. So watch out there.
Yeah.
Well, guys, look, I really appreciate you, both of you, of course, carving some time out of your respective schedules. I know you got clients to serve, so I'll let you get back to doing that. But really good episode today with Charis. Appreciate you both. And guys, I mean, look, you have these conversations. You mentioned a moment ago, they're purposeful, intentional, helping clients navigate, challenges with regard to wealth and goals. And then, of course, putting them on that path, of course, as we talk about on the show, to abundant living. So for anybody out there that would, benefit from a conversation with you guys about that intersection of goals and wealth and where they want to go, what would be the best way they can get in touch with you guys?
So the traditional way, pick up the phone, call 517-333-7967, or go to the website morrisonnordman.com, and there's a link you can click on to schedule a get to know you call, 15 minutes. We're going to spend 15 minutes, give or take, and just learn all about you and see how we can add value.
Perfect. Well, guys, I appreciate you again, and looking forward to being back on the next one with you.
Great to see you, Ryan. Great show. See you soon. See you, Scott.
See you soon.
All right. Thanks, guys. And hey, look, we're going to take one final moment as we always do and thank you all. And that's our audience for stopping by and being with us today on the show. If you took anything away from today's discussion with Charis, you benefited from it in any way, shape, or form, make sure you hit that subscribe button on whichever platform you did check out the show today so that you don't miss out on other great conversations just like these, where whether it's Scott, Matt, and I diving into different wealth management topics or bringing on some great guest experts from their network, either way, we're trying to provide value to you guys at the end of the day. So, by making sure you're subscribed, you won't miss out on any future episodes. But for Matt and Scott, I'm Ryan. We're going to go and say so long now. But again, thanks for stopping by and being with us on Path to Abundant Living.